Hello, BookTube, and welcome to the Future History Project. It's week 23 and part 1, and this is book 5 of Robot City, Refugee. I think I got that wrong. I think I said refugee, and then I changed it to refuge, but it's Refugee. It's written by Rob Chilson and was published in 1988. And again, like all the others, it starts out with an introduction by Isaac Asimov, and he just talks about a city, the sort of beginning of cities, moving from hunter and gatherer to city, and how that affected humans sociologically, uh, culturally, and things like that in a very general form. Because what happens here is that Derek and Ariel and Mandelbrot, the uh, the robot, and the alien canine sort of looking species that is, I always get the name of Wolfram, um, are on a spaceship. They escaped. They Dr. Avery. They duped Dr. Avery in the previous book, and they fled Robot City to try to get help for Ariel, her disease, which is progressing. However, the spaceship, they're sort of stranded in a sense in a star system, and because they have no charts, no star charts, they just sort of did one jump just to get out very quickly, a hyperspace jump, and their hyperspace communication system is not working either. And they don't know when anything's gonna happen, if any ship's gonna show up, and Ariel's getting worse. So they decide, because there is a perihelion device on the ship, and they assume it'll take them back to Robot City. However, they do use it, and again, it's only designed for humans. So Ariel and Derek go, but they wind up on Earth, in St. Louis. It's one of the caves of steel, and it's actually a small apartment, a 2-room apartment, C3 sort of level of social status, and there's a robot there as well that thinks that they're Avery, so Derek Avery and Ariel Avery, and so they were a bit surprised, but they get fake ID. The robot gives them fake ID, and what they need to do is, they want to get back to the spacer world, so they try to find uh, the spaceport, and but because their language, their accent is clearly spacer, that everybody's other humans there thinking that they're pretending and putting it on as an air, and uh, they don't get greeted very well. There's prejudice still against spacers, and it is a bit further ahead than Caves of Steel, but there is reference to our Daniel Oliva, and the mission that he had in the investigation in New York. So they do find out that there is the spaceport is actually in New York. So they have to get there somehow, and they can't travel on the train. Um, they're not allowed to do that because of their social level. So they think that, okay, well, there is overground um, communication and roadways that for produce and things like that, because there are farms out in the rest outside of the city, mostly run by robots, but there are these huge trucks that go back and forth, and they figured that they would grab one of these trucks and either steal it and just drive all the way to New York City from St. Louis. Uh, that sort of goes awry. Ariel's condition deteriorates very quickly, and she's taken to the hospital. And as it turns out, the Earth doctors know what's wrong. It's a plague, or at least it's a disease that causes loss of memory and death usually. So there's something odd then with Derek, because he has lost his memory, obviously. So they find out that he's never had the disease, but he's also got the antibodies for it. So something has happened there, and they're still not sure. And it looks like that he has had a relationship with Ariel, and she was sort of keeping that secret. But she doesn't die. They cure her, but she does lose most of her memories, and they're starting to build it back up. They get investigated by Terrestrial Investigation Bureau, and because they're spacers, but they sort of get cleared more or less, but told, leave as soon as possible. And then they find out that there's a spaceship, as I say, in New York that belongs to Avery, so they just need to get there. So, and then they figure that they can fly. And this is the other thing. They fly. I'll get to the issues and other things with the story. So they fly there. They get in the spaceship and they go out, and they're sort of hanging around a little bit around Earth just to make sure nobody's following them. And then they're just sort of going to plot their course, but all of a sudden a ship appears, and it's the alien that had captured both of them previously. He had sort of been dogging them and found out that there was use of the perihelion device, and he was able to track it. So, and he's going to destroy. They're going to fight, but all of a sudden, Mandelbrot and the other alien, the canine alien, show up and basically destroy the other alien ship. But he probably escapes, though, in one of the sort of hulls, because it's sort of a pieced together spaceship of other bits of spaceships. So he is probably fled. And they're both ships then. They're equal ships. They're both very badly damaged, and they're trying to repair them, but they figure they don't have enough oxygen or possibly foodstuffs, because it's they can't take the risk for the stress of the ship to take one jump. They've got to take, and it'll take 3 weeks, and every time they do a jump, they're going to have to do repairs. So they decide basically to, or they were going to decide to go back to Earth with this, but they do find a robot in the wreckage, another robot from Robot City, and it's got a perihelion device, and one is sort of to go to Robot City. So Mandelbrot connects into it and holds everybody, and then the last scene is that they're back on the tower at Robot City. There's a few. Okay, it was an enjoyable story because it was sort of nice to get off of the planet, because it was getting a bit stale and a bit same. They were sort of spinning their wheels. But there's a few issues, because it's like, they're trying to figure out how to get from, St. Louis there, and then they're saying that they can't go by train, and they're asking the robot and stuff like this, but then all of a sudden, he doesn't mention that they can fly there, and then later that they can fly, and it is okay for them to fly because it's not a luxury thing, because nobody really wants to fly, and there's lots of space. So it's just very odd. How that is, like, the little holes with this, and also too that they can't, that the perihelion is geared for the one they found is for robots, but they're saying, okay, well, Mandelbrot can go, but then Mandelbrot says, well, he can take them with him, so he does. So there's issues, and there's issues of how this alien was able to track them and stuff like that. They don't explain, but it was enjoyable. I do say it was enjoyable. And the other thing that was interesting was there's a lot more information about sort of the working of the cave of steel, the city, of how there's produce coming in. There are humans that go out and work, and they pay highly for truck drivers. These truck drivers that can brave the outside, so they pay a lot for that. So, and there's lots of produce coming in. You see the areas where and how it's distributed throughout the city, and talking about everything is geared there. And it was mentioned, I think, in Caves of Steel, that if the power went off for an hour, the whole city would die. It's very, very dependent on time of arrival of stuff, as well as food and everything. And there's lots of real produce, chickens and fruit and things like that, which you don't really get that impression so much in Caves of Steel that Isaac Asimov had written. You get more the idea that it's all soya-based products that are made to look like and taste as much as possible the real things. There are hints of that, but at least in St. Louis, where they were here, there at least it could be 100 years in the future, and there is real produce and real food in a sense. So like I say, it was pretty good. And they did mention, as I say, our Daniel Oliver, and they're saying that he is probably he's back on. They've never met him, but he's probably back on Aurora. So he is, Oliver is around somewhere doing things. So in the background, it's always in the background. And then so for Thursday, I will be discussing. I will need to read book 6, Perihelion, and this is the final book of Robot City, and this is by William F. Wu. That's also, I think, 1988. Yes, 1988. So, fingers crossed for it being okay as a series finale, in a sense. But anyway, that's it, BookTube. It's been so far an enjoyable series for the most part. Again, sort of sidestepping, it's not on the timeline of the future history so much. It is, but it's a bit of a side timeline. Unless they pull something out of the bag here with the Robot City, because he is we got to remember that Dr. Avery is Auroran. And there was the talk of having humaniform robots, create, societies on planets. And that was in the Robots of Dawn. And that was sort of going to go ahead, as well as, allowing other spacer worlds and Earth, colonize, which they are doing in at this time. They are colonizing other planets. So possibly his thing, even though he's working by himself secretly, could be part of that kind of thing, of where it's progressed to. Hopefully there'll be some answers in here. Anyway, I'll see you next time, BookTube. Take care.